Welcome to the 42nd Annual Sun and Fun International Convention and Fly-In here at the Lakeland Linder Regional Airport. I'm Ben Coleman, one of your hosts here with the Florida Aviation Network, and we can be viewed at www.floridaaviationnetwork.com. And that is where a lot of, all of our safety information and aviation educational material is located. And that's why we do this. This is in purpose of our volunteers and our volunteer group to come out to you and bring this information to wherever your location is. And hopefully your location is out here at the airport, but if you're not, if you're viewing this on your monitor, I'm sure you'll be out here tomorrow. We're here for this week looking and appreciating our armed forces. Yesterday was Army Day, today is Navy Day. I think tomorrow is Coast Guard Day. So just thank you to our armed forces. Safety and knowledge and experience is all kind of tied into our next guest that we have here all the way from the Bahamas. And Elizabeth Vance. Elizabeth.
Ben.
Welcome to the set.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for taking time away from your beautiful island paradise over there and to try and teach folks how easy and efficient it is to fly over the Bahamas.
That's exactly why we're here, and that's why we keep coming back to Sun and Fun year after year after year. We are all about letting people know how easy it is to fly to the Bahamas and making sure that they feel safe and secure when they're making that trip.
The airplane doesn't know it's over water.
And you know, you and the pilot and passengers barely know they're over water either. By the time you take off from Florida, you can pretty much see Bimini. You're only about 50 miles.
But I guarantee you, Elizabeth, every time that I've made the trip, I listen to every one of those spark plugs. And I know when one starts to act up on me a little bit. But it's something that you just kind of keep it in your mind, and you keep the adrenaline going, and you if you dwell on it, you're never going to go. So you really need to be honest with yourself and just educate yourself. Know your airplane, know that it's in good shape. You don't want to go pushing the limits to that point. Know yourself, physically. Are you in good shape? Do you want to go? Do you feel good? What's your plans once you get there? And above all, how to get there. And this is where, Elizabeth, tell us.
Well,
you fill out a general declaration. I don't want to mess with customs. Can I just kind of sneak in and go to an island somewhere?
Well, no, not quite. But one of the things that we do try and do is to give you that peace of mind so that we know when the pilot takes off, he already has everything under control, or she has everything under control that she can have under control. In other words, you filled out your paperwork, you know what your process is, you know whether or not there's going to be fuel where you're headed to, you know where you can divert if you need to. We have 21 airports of entry throughout the islands of the Bahamas. We have 700 islands. We have dozens more individual airports for pilots to come out and explore. So what we try and do is make sure that we go through briefings with our pilots that are headed over to the Bahamas to make sure that they're comfortable with all the paperwork and processes and so forth, because it can seem kind of overwhelming. And you don't want that on the back of your mind while you're listening to those extra little buzzes and things in the airplane. So if you're comfortable on that, I think that really goes a long way toward peace of mind.
Well, Elizabeth, is there a pill or something you can swallow to get this knowledge or information, or how do you, is there a movie? Do I have to call you personally? Say, Elizabeth, talk me through this. I'm not really sure about what I'm doing.
Well, you certainly can call me personally, and my phone number and email address is on practically everything that we put out there. We also have a group of individuals called our flying ambassadors, and these are folks that have flown back and forth to the Bahamas numerous times. They lead flyouts for us. They help us in making presentations to flying clubs, to different groups that are making trips to go out to the Bahamas, and they can help go through that whole pre-flight process so that we can take everyone from step to step. And their contact information is available to all of our pilots who are thinking about traveling to the Bahamas. They are there to help. The reason we do the fly-ins that we do is to help pilots the first time over. If you want to go with the group and have that extra little bit of assist going over, we can arrange a fly-in that will help you make that comfortable step out there. We're doing seminars here at the show. We just did one at noon today. We've got 2 more coming up this week. We're doing one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and a second one on Sunday at the FAA studio. So we take every opportunity we can to go through those seminars. Now, our briefing is a little different than it was maybe 20 years ago when we basically said, head to Palm Beach and hang a left. But it's really not that overwhelming if you take it step by step. That's why we put together our pilot's guide. And in our pilot's guide, we actually have a checklist for our pilots for inbound and for outbound. So they can go through that list. They've got something physically written down so that will help them go through what it is that we need to do. We also talk about the VFR flight planning chart where we go through mandatory requirements. So your airplane's ready to go. You've got your U.S. Customs sticker, you've got a transponder, your 12-inch numbers, you've got a vest on board for every passenger. We're recommending a raft as well, and not required, but a good idea. And we talk about all these things in our briefing. Make sure the plane's ready, make sure the pilot's ready, make sure your paperwork is ready, and then go out and have a good time.
I have an RV. I've got an experimental aircraft. Can I go to the Bahamas?
You sure can. If you're airworthy in the United States, you are airworthy in the Bahamas. You can not only take your RV over there, you can also take your light sport aircraft over there.
Wow. How about, I just bought this airplane. I don't have my my hard registration card yet.
You should have that with you when you're on your way. Absolutely. You should also make sure that you've got check your insurance. Make sure your insurance extends to the Bahamas. You should make sure that you've done all of those things.
You mean I've got to wait for this little piece of paper to come from Oklahoma?
You know what? You're making a trip, an international trip. Do some planning. Think of it in advance, and make sure that you give yourself enough time to get that done. You also need passports now to travel back and forth from the Bahamas. The U.S. requires passports. There's also an advanced passenger information system, the EAPIS program that the United States requires. So if you're flying from the States over to the Bahamas or to Canada or to Mexico, you now need to go through this additional process. So give yourself enough time to do that. Everybody's got to have a passport. You want to come home, you got to have a passport. U.S. is going to require that.
I understand that the EAPIS program is extremely difficult to navigate through and just a real pain.
It's really not a real pain. It might have been. I think the Bahamas was very active along with our friends from Sun and Fun and EAA and AOPA. There was an awful lot of lobbying that went on when this was first going to be put into place. And we were talking about what needs to be done for private pilots so that this is not so cumbersome. And basically what the process is you log onto the website, you put in the information to register. They're going to ask you for your name, for 2 forms of identification. One needs to be your passport, your permanent address, all your contact information. You're going to put all of that stuff in there, and now you're registered. So now when you're ready to make your trip, you go back onto that site. It's all done electronically, and you say, okay, on May 2nd, I'm going to go to Georgetown, Exuma. And on May 7th, I'm going to come back. You can actually do that online before you leave home. It's all done for you. And as long as your traveling is happening within those dates, everything's fine. Now, if you get down to Exuma and you think that the 7th is too early to come back home again and you want to make a change, you are going to have to go back online and change your date. But you don't need to go back in and cancel or change your original filing. It'll just simply expire. Now you've got a new one that says this is when I'm coming home.
And I'm being devil's advocate here.
Of
I'm
course.
being obstinate. I'm being a typical public general aviation pilot.
Yeah.
And
we love you for it. Thank you.
How about internet over in the Bahamas? What's the connectivity?
I'll tell you, several years ago when the internet began coming forward, one of the things that I always used to hear was, if you're not wired, you're fired. In other words, this is something that our hotels throughout the Bahamas rely on as well. So not finding internet access at any of the hotels that you might be staying at, no matter how remote they are, is going to be very unusual.
Because satellite is very, very capable, and you've got some beautiful uncovered areas out there, if you will.
Exactly.
Don't have too many mountains in the Bahamas to deal with.
Well, we do have Mount Alvernia. We've got Mount Alvernia on Cat Island is 200 feet up in the air. That is our highest spot in the Bahamas.
Need to have oxygen up on top of that one. But but as a matter of fact, Elizabeth, back in the day, do you ever remember seeing in your history annals a T-tailed lance on this Bahamas VFR planning guide? A lance, T-tail lance, Piper lance.
I do actually. Now, see, you're going to tell me that I've been around too many years, and that might be true, but my first trip to the Bahamas was in an Archer from Wisconsin down to Long Island in the mid-'70s. So I was down to the Bahamas the first time pre-independence.
Okay, well then, if it was mid-'70s, if it was late mid-'70s or early '80s, that's when you'd have seen this T-tail lance on this map.
Uh-huh.
If you look real close in there,
I can see you.
it's me. Because I was working for Piper Aircraft at the time.
Okay.
And
well, we need to bring that one back to the forefront again.
oh, it's classic.
Yeah.
I think on the back of it was two people walking on the beach, real tan, one buff guy, which was not me.
Was that you? No.
No, that wasn't me. That was actors. But anyway, it's always it's stimulating. Let's just say it's stimulating to fly. Even the thoughts of going to the Bahamas makes me happy. And where do you live, Elizabeth?
Well, I actually live in South Florida. I live in Dania Beach, which
Okay.
is just below Fort Lauderdale. But there is not an island in the Bahamas with a hotel on it that I have not had the opportunity to visit.
Excellent.
And I do actually have a little lot that says someday Elizabeth is going to live on Long Island in the Bahamas.
Cat Island, Georgetown. I think we based out of Georgetown doing the photo shoot. And there's another kind of a German, I guess that's Cat Island. Does it have a German community there or a German hotel?
The Greenwood property is owned by Germans. There's also the Stella Maris Resort
Stella Maris,
on
yeah,
Long
yeah,
Island, which
Long-
was German owned and operated. They're actually in their third generation
Wow.
of family operators.
Well, but it's quite it's quaint. It's a challenge and I don't really recommend anybody a first timer. You need to. It really is nice to have an ambassador to either talk you through it, and it could be overwhelming to just launch off on your own, take your family and say, I'm going to fly to the Bahamas.
Well, that's
and,
why we try and make it so simple. That's
yeah.
and our flying ambassadors, we've got information about each of them on our website. We have bahamas.com/flying, and there's a whole series of pages there that will talk about the Bahamas Flying Ambassadors. Tells you how to contact them if you have questions. There's a whole page in there on our Bahamas Gateway FBOs. There are a number of FBOs along Florida that we also go through training programs with. So if you find yourself sitting at Fort Lauderdale Executive in Banyan and you need some assistance with getting the rest of your paperwork or whatever in order, they know how to help you do that.
Well, I'll tell you, and you got an air show coming up next week.
We do. We are bringing back an air show to Grand Bahama. Now, I actually thought it was going to be the first Bahamas air show, but I learned recently that back in the early 70s, there were actually a couple of military air shows off of Grand Bahama. We had the Thunderbirds, I think, came over one year.
Tough duty.
So now this air show is not going to be military. This air show is acrobatic, and it will be April 15th and 16th. What we're doing is putting together kind of an acrobatic show in cooperation with the Carnival or Junkanoo Festival that's going to be happening on Grand Bahama. And we're also incorporating some stuff for the kids in the Bahamas. We're going to have a career day. We're putting together a Young Eagles program. We've got a wonderful group that's coming over here from Florida, coming over to Grand Bahama to take these kids on their first flight. Several of the aviation businesses within Grand Bahama are going to be doing a career day for the kids. So we're doing everything we can to talk about aviation as a career and an industry for the Bahamas. Because while you and I know that tourism is our largest industry in the Bahamas, I think aviation should be number two.
I think it should be as well, and it's so good to see that you folks are putting forth so much effort. For example, I think you have something to do with the night air show.
Well, yeah. Well, we are being sponsors, and so we're doing some fun stuff with the night air show. We've got a little group of folks that are coming over to join us in watching the air show this evening, and really looking forward to that.
Well, and we want to thank you for what you put out for that. And nothing happens in this, it takes funding. And I'm glad that you guys don't mind taking the funds to put it out, because we feel like you get it back. You feel like you get it back, or else you wouldn't do it.
Well, and seriously, it is our association with the Sun and Fun organization that was the launch for us to go after putting together an air show on Grand Bahama. If it was not for the influence and for the support that we see from the Sun and Fun organization, we probably wouldn't be seeing this very first air show coming up. this year, which we are hoping is going to turn into a regular annual event the week following this one.
And this is on the Grand Bahama Island.
This is on Grand Bahama Island. The air show is going to be happening right off Taino Beach. So the airplanes are going to be, so you can sit there in the sand and watch this show.
Okay, and how's the weather going to be next week?
Perfect.
Oh, okay, I love to hear that. So, no tropical depressions?
No, nothing out there nothing in the wind
Fortunately,
right now.
this is not the time of year for that, so it's
true.
a perfect
That's
time,
true.
in case you have a pop-up every now and then. What is your favorite, other than Long Island? They call it Long Island. It's a lot different than Long Island up north. But
Well, that's true, and Long Island is beautiful. It's one of the islands that has a little bit of elevation to it. You know, some pretty cliffs, some shallow areas. It's a beautiful island. I can't tell you that there's just one favorite place. I love Eleuthera. I've had a great time in the Abacos, throughout the Abacos. I've enjoyed visiting Bimini. I've enjoyed visiting Crooked Island. I've been down to San Salvador. I've been to Rum Cay. I've been through the Exumas, many of them, not all of them. There's an awful lot of islands in the Exumas.
Yep,
But
there are.
Andros is another wonderful place, that great big huge island, but still very remote.
And you mentioned you were flying an Archer. Are you still active? You still stay current?
No, I know I'm much busier doing other things.
Well,
I know
that's
my father was extremely disappointed that when that happened. But
well, are there any plans to get back current?
There is every single plan to be close to any single airport or runway where any pilot might be heading to the Bahamas, and I am always ready to go.
Good. And you mentioned that you have some youth involved in your air show over there, and it's so important. I guess you've kind of obviously noticed what's going on here at the high school, Aviation High School.
I was at the dedication over there this morning. How very wonderful with the new hangar and the work that the kids are doing. I think that's fantastic.
Well, and again, we want to thank Mr. Ray for everything he's put out for that. But
yes,
it does take money. It takes funds, but you don't have to always take it to quite the degree that these guys have taken it. That's first class, but second class, third class, it's okay, as long as they're out getting involved and learning, and as long as we have adults and mentors and sponsorship to help.
It makes a big difference, and it makes a big difference, I think, to our children in the Bahamas as well. The first time we did a Young Eagles program in the Bahamas, we were actually down on Long Island, and we worked with the kids down there. The whole community came out for this. There was tremendous support. And out of that, while there were a number of kids that went out and did this, we actually had one of those people who was there, a young man who is now a commercial pilot. And it's all because of what was able to be done there, part of the Young Eagles program, and the tremendous support that, again, we got from the EAA chapter that helped us put that together. So
that is
absolutely phenomenal. Love to see that.
And your predecessor, Greg Roll.
Greg Rule is now our Senior Director for the Ministry of Tourism. He has responsibility for all of our tourist offices in the United States. Still very, very active in everything that's going on, and the man that I will report to as soon as I get back home.
Yeah, a prince of a man, he is.
Yes.
And I've always enjoyed Greg and his demeanor, his attitude. He's very sincere.
He did wonderful work for us in getting aviation established. I mean, things like the VFR chart and the pilot's guide, and making sure that we're doing seminars, putting together the Gateway FBO program, putting together the Flying Ambassador program. That was all his foresight and vision that made that come to pass. So I'm very proud to be able to help continue that.
Well, and you should be. And I'm sure you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
I haven't checked up on you yet, but
Listen
I will.
to that, Greg.
I will be checking up on it. But,
okay.
Elizabeth, the ambassador program, how many ambassadors do you have?
We have a dozen flying ambassadors, and their contact information, as I said, is on Bahamas.com. There's a page specifically dedicated to them. Two of our ambassadors were here doing the seminar today that we did over at the education seminar. They're here working with us in the booth. We want to make sure that we always have a current pilot that can sit there and talk pilot to people when they're coming into the booth. Because we're here talking and promoting tourism, and not everyone working in the Bahamas booth is that familiar with aviation, but we do want to know that anyone who comes to the booth has the opportunity to ask those questions and get the right answers.
Well, we hope to be spending a lot of time over there, and and actually I volunteer here for OBI, but I work for Mahindra Aerospace, and we have the air van, the Gips Aero air van.
Okay.
The air,
So we need to bring you over for the air show next year.
Next year, absolutely. This year we ran out of airplanes. We sold out of demonstrators, and that's one of the reasons we're not here on the field this year is we didn't have an airplane.
Wow.
It's unusual for an aircraft manufacturer to not
To
have
not
an
have
airplane. They're all
Yeah.
sold. So, but we do have fun with the air van, and we went down for the hurricane relief
Thank
effort
you.
last October, was it? November.
Yeah, September, August, September.
Somewhere
yeah.
in that time period, we flew some supplies down for some folks, and
Thank you very much for that. There was a very big impact, particularly on our southern islands. Yeah.
yeah, well, we will do as much as we can whenever we can, if we have an airplane. Kind of irritates me that we don't have a display here, but if I was out there, I wouldn't be able to be here talking to fine folks like yourself.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Me too. What else can you tell us about? I know your website is. I'm going to just outislandsfun.com.
Actually, the outislands.com website or myoutislands.com website has some really cool special offers for private pilots. Myoutislands.com is an association of out island hotels, and many of them cater to private pilots, offering special programs and so forth. And one of the special programs that they offer is a fuel credit. So in other words, if you show up at one of these member properties with your C7A, they will actually give you credit on your hotel bill for coming in as a private pilot. They also offer special discounts and so forth. And we have a number of hotels that are owned and operated by pilots. Small Hope Bay on Andros, pilot. Stella Maris on Long Island, pilot. Fernandez Bay on Cat Island, pilot. Staniel Key and the Exumas, pilot. So we've got a lot of properties that, have private pilots and cater to private pilots and are more than willing to, not only answer your questions, but to make pilots feel welcome when they come to visit.
I just had a flashback. It was vivid at Georgetown. At the airport there used to be a little shack called Kermit's.
Yeah.
Is that still there? Or is it now not a shack? It's probably air conditioning.
No, actually, that was the old original Georgetown Airport, which is now in Moosetown, although it's still called Georgetown. So no, it's Georgetown Airport. Next time you fly in there will not look at all like you recall if you're
Probably
thinking of Kermit's.
Paved and everything.
Oh gosh, yes, it's beautiful.
But you do know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
as far
I
as
do.
Kermit's? Is it still there?
I've spent some time there, but like I said, it's that physical airport has moved.
Wow. Because I'm told I had a real good time at Kermit's one time. I don't remember. I was there, but I wasn't, if you know what I mean.
Well, there you go. And not flying, thank you.
No, heavens no.
Yes.
The flying day was over.
Perfect.
But we did have fun on that trip, and Air Progress was there with us, and you have Phil Lockwood was just there.
Yes,
with the AirCam doing
the AirCam group, and oh my goodness, the video that he gets is absolutely phenomenal. They do a beautiful job, very, very nice. I know Staniel Key is one of their favorite haunting grounds. The water and everything is absolutely gorgeous there.
I'm there right now. You just mentioned it, and I'm just there. but it is it's a beautiful area. And is there any? Well, I guess it is the closest, other than Cuba. Well, I think it's closer. What is the distance from West Palm Beach to Freeport?
West Palm Beach to West End is about 70 miles. Miami to Bimini is about 50 miles. And you can literally follow the chain of islands down there. But when you start at the north end of the Bahamas and get all the way down to the south, you're covering about 700 miles. So it is a very large region. But like I said, there's going to be an island in sight, and there's going to be an airport pretty much in sight no matter where you go.
Well, Elizabeth, the next trip that I take over there, just make sure that that day that no sharks are out, just in case we need to sit down.
Okay.
Because I don't do sharks, and I do flying, but I don't do sharks in the water.
Don't do sharks? Okay. Shark diving is actually quite popular in the Bahamas. There are a lot of people that want to come over and dive with the sharks, and there are several places that offer that as a very exciting and very safe dive.
More power to them. Anything bigger than me in the water is too big. And of course, if I keep eating the way I do, there's not going to be much bigger than me in the water. But Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being here.
Me as well. And I look forward to coming over and seeing you over there. And I won't be able to make it next week for your air show.
For the air show. But
next year, if we get an invitation,
You bet.
Mahindra Aerospace.
I will not
Ipsero,
forget. We'll put your name on the list.
And we'll bring an airplane over for static.
Okay.
With that, we're going to end this conversation with our guest Elizabeth Vance, and we look forward to seeing you in the Bahamas. Take it easy. This has been Coleman, one of your hosts, and we'll see you next interview.